Hey everybody, Plushie here. So NA is rerunning 6 summer banners. What a surprise. We've had a lot of NA exclusive banners, but this is certainly yet another big one. I thought I'd share my thoughts on all of these banners briefly, very briefly. It's not going to be nearly as detailed as one of my hot take videos where I break down every servant individually. So I apologize, this is indeed more of a lazy and laid back video compared to what I usually do, but I still hope you guys enjoy. These are all old servants I have, experience with more or less, so I thought I'd share my thoughts and bring up any questions in the comments, so I'll try to answer them if I can. So the first banner we're going to talk about is the Summer Musashi banner, alongside with Summer Carmilla and Summer Osakabe Hime. So Summer Musashi over the years has been branded as this outdated arts AoE looper that nobody wants to use anymore, and I think that is certainly a bit too harsh of a criticism to this character, considering she still has her own edges against her other peers. Mainly her Berserker class allows her to outdamage her other competition that usually only does neutral damage, such as Space Ishtar, Summer Kama, and the Ruler Melusine of the very far away future. However, her main issue lies in her lack of any form of direct MP charge as well as team buffs, and with how the farming nodes in this game has evolved over the years, they have become progressively less friendly towards these kinds of characters that rely solely on their own MP refund. Especially with how multi-core is becoming such a prevalent way to farm in JP right now, she certainly fits pretty poorly into the system, sometimes even struggling to fire off her first MP if the event CE has no starting charge at all. And also her advantage of being in the Berserker class will slowly lose exclusivity if you're willing to wait another year for Summer Ibuki. Very unfortunately, I'd have to say, if put under the same conditions, Summer Ibuki would outperform Summer Musashi in 90% of the cases, especially when we talk about farming, considering she has the 50 MP battery advantage as well as better team buffs. However, Summer Musashi isn't completely worthless, and she is still a very potent challenge quest damage dealer, mainly because of her skill 3 being able to offer her 3 turns worth of Invul Pierce. Unremovable invulnerability is quite a common occurrence in modern challenge quests, and while other characters will have to work around them by pairing with tech units such as Sherlock Holmes or Calamity Jane, Summer Musashi can just ignore them directly and use normal supports, which is quite a huge advantage. She also has other tools such as her very short 4-turn cooldown evade on her skill 1, or her stackable 30% critical chance down to all enemies on her MP to assist in her challenge quest performance. So she's still a really potent attacker in challenge quest specifically, just not that good anymore in farming. I'd say if you're just aiming for a generic AoE arts looper, I'd still wait for Summer Kama, who's also coming very soon on NA. However, if you already really like this character and if you already have invested in her, further investing in her MP level isn't that bad of a choice. So Summer Carmilla is a character that I'm particularly familiar with, and unfortunately she is not a very good damage dealer and exceptionally abysmal at looping as well. Her main value lies in her ability to support the entire team even when she is not on the field, because all of her supportive effects are debuffs, allowing you to plug her out after throwing out all her skills, or even allowing her to die from a taunt C effect if you want to. Summer Carmilla's first skill is able to offer a debuff version of a critical damage buff, allowing your entire team to do extra critical damage against a single target. It also comes with a Star Bomb as well as a Skill Seal, which are both generically good effects. Her skill 2 is able to offer a delayed MP drain as well as team MP charge, which is very unique and can come into play in certain situations. Finally, her third skill is just a generically good AoE defense down. Even her MP is able to offer a lot of good debuffs, such as a quick down as well as an AoE buff block. Overall, Summer Carmilla is more fit for a finicky challenge quest clear or challenge quest min turn situation, and her entire kit will become basically non-existent if the enemy has very high debuff resistance or just straight up debuff immunity, so I don't really recommend pulling for this character specifically. Same goes with Summer Osakabe Hime. Her main niche in my opinion is her ability to offer the entire team sure hit for 3 turns on a relatively short cooldown at 5 turns, as well as taunt a singular enemy. Taunting a singular enemy can come into play in certain situations, as there are some weird interactions such as your ability to change targets even if you are in the middle of a Brave Chain if you are hitting 2 different taunted enemy units. However, that is so niche that it basically never comes up, and even when it comes up, it's usually still clearable with normal means, so I don't really recommend pulling for her as well. Even though her MP is able to offer some form of support, usually I would just run some more dedicated support over her. So overall, the first banner is pretty okay. If you really like Summer Musashi, you can try to get more MP copies of her, but other than that, it's nothing too crazy. So the next banner we're going to take a look at is Rulertoria as well as Lancer Melt's banner. Now Rulertoria traditionally has quite the negative stigma surrounding her because of her ruler class only allowing her to do neutral damage in most cases, as well as her super low attack stat, making her MP damage quite abysmal. However, I do think the card shuffling skill post buff is pretty useful. It has a really good buff tied to it, which is a 3-turn 50% AoE crit up, and it ties especially well to the card shuffling mechanic. Now after the buff, she is able to exclude one of the character's cards from the pool for an entire turn, and that will allow your critical turns to be a lot more consistent. This can be used in challenge quests, and she also in general is a pretty okay challenge quest damage dealer with her defensive ignoring MP as well as her ruler class being able to tank damage from most sources. This card shuffling skill can even be used in certain multi-core farming comps if you are relying on critical hits in certain waves. This can either allow one of your strong critical damage dealers to deal with a singular wave with just their face cards, or make up for her low MP damage by allowing her to face card after using her MP. She does still have a 40 MP battery, which is quite huge, as well as a star absorb up skill that will enable her already really decent star weight as a ruler to crit very consistently with this skill. So overall, she's definitely not completely worthless, however, also not a target I would particularly go for. Lancer Melt is certainly, to a lot of people, the actual highlight of this banner, and I kind of agree. She is a super strong loop farming Lancer and still outperforming a lot of 5 stars even to this day. Now with Percival being a more accessible permanent option, her desirability certainly has dropped by a little bit. However, she still has edges over Percival, mainly her skill 3 being able to charge her with a whopping 60 MP battery. It's also very easy to access as well, because if you just run a singular Castoria and use her first skill, she can already drain 60 from her other 2 teammates, including Castoria herself. This can screw over her other teammates if you are running her in a multi-core setup. However, if you're just running her as a singular loop farmer in a double Castoria team, she's able to tackle way more crooked enemy waves such as 2-2-1s or even 2-1-2s in certain situations if you plug Oberon, compared to someone like Percival because she's less reliant on her raw refund. But outside of farming, she is also a super strong challenge quest damage dealer. Her skill 1 is a permanent arts buff that even doubles in effect every couple of turns, that helps in both her looping as well as her damage. Her second skill is the combination of 2 of the strongest defensive effects in the entire game, combining a 1-turn invul with a buff removal resist, meaning that any MP that buff removes before damage can't really deal with this character. Her skill 3 also has a massive 50% attack up on a 5-turn cooldown, allowing her to have even better burst turns. It even has a star absorb up that pairs really well with her MP. Her MP ignores defense as well as generates 20 stars every time she does MP, which she will be doing basically every single turn, and usually crit stars are a lot less accessible to art servants, but she can feed herself with a lot of stars, which is very powerful for a art servant. Even her passives with the combination of magic resist as well as goddess core allows her to have exceptionally high debuff resistance that can wall off a lot of nasty effects from the enemies on occasion. So overall, I think Lancer Melt, especially considering she is the singular rate up 4-star on this banner, is definitely worth picking up and even upgrading MPs of, but Rulertoria not so much. So the next banner we're going to talk about is the banner that has Summer BB, MHXX, and Summer Maeve. Summer BB is certainly one of the most unique characters in the entire game, and unfortunately I don't think her skill 3 card lock is worth rolling for as a pure support, even if you want to support a pure critical damage DPS such as Super Orion, as she is unable to provide your team with any additional value with her other skills, and her skill 3 runs out, she becomes an instant deadweight. However, if you do treat her as the main critical damage dealer, this skill 3 suddenly becomes super good. Is able to provide her with a constant stream of stars as well as give you the opportunity opportunity to lock a superb hand. For example, if she gets 2 Buster cards or if you get a Brave Chain on her. And that 10 stars per turn pairs really well with her first skill, which is another superb critical damage skill with a 50% crit up for 3 turns. 3 turns worth of star absorb up as well, and also 20% attack up after the buff. I do think the additional effect of the buff, which is, gain 20 stars whenever she does an extra attack, is a little bit overkill, so you can kind of ignore it considering her skill 3 already gives her really good amount of stars. She has star absorb up, and usually you also run her with Van Gogh. Yes, she is both chaotic evil as well as existence outside of the realm, allowing her to pair very well with both Dolman and Van Gogh. This even spawned a very interesting farm team that focuses on doing critical damage instead of MP damage, which is very good. This means that you don't have to have any of them at high MP levels. Also, her MP damage already isn't that amazing, so this is certainly a good farming composition that is more than a meme in my personal opinion. Her skill 2 has been criticized by many after Koenskaya of Light came out because of its long cooldown at 7, not allowing her to run a 50 MP start CE and double Koenskaya plug Oberon in Buster looping. However, if you take a look at the skill, you will instantly understand why it has such a long cooldown, because it is a wonderful blend of both defensive and offensive ability and is superb in challenge quests. It gives her a 3 turn 50% MP damage up, 20% Buster up, as well as a 3000 heal and an evade. So overall, this is a super stacked skill for challenge quest. And finally, her MP is also able to delay enemies' MP turns. I do think the chance to additionally drain another bar from all enemies is a bit too low to rely on. However, this MP at its base still is able to at least delay enemies' MP turns, which is kind of okay. In general, I think she is one of the best critical DPSs to pair with Van Gogh period, and because of her heavily crit reliant gameplay, you don't really have to roll higher MP levels for her to function, so I definitely recommend if you really enjoy playing with critical teams and Van Gogh in particular. Summer Maid certainly isn't in the best situation with so many strong competitions in the single target art saber category, even in the 4-star rarities such as the more accessible permanent Saber Lancelot, as well as the free Saber Hokusai, and even the super powerful Saito Hajime. She is definitely not competing very well against any of them. She has the typical Maid problem of trying to both be a support as well as a DPS, making a lot of her buffs and debuffs decentralized, so her damage is not very good at all. Her refund is okay because of her first skill's passive MP generation, and her MP is certainly interesting. If she gets perfect RNG, she's able to cast 3 turns worth of 40% defense down on the enemy every single turn, and this does ramp up quite well. However, because of her low base damage as well as this being an RNG factor, I just in generally don't think she is a great choice in terms of gameplay. Definitely would not recommend pulling for her just for gameplay. MHXX certainly is looking a lot better than Summer Maid in the gameplay category. Just look at some of her buffs. She has a lot of very strong one-turn effects that have relatively short cooldowns, such as her 50% attack up for a single turn, her 100% star absorb up for a single turn that also ties to a star bomb, her 1-turn invul pierce, as well as 1-turn 50% anti-threat to humanity damage that is tied to a 30 MP battery. So her playstyle is very simple. You run her with double Castoria, you nuke the enemy, and then you cool down for like 5 to 6 turns after all of your skills come back, and then you nuke the enemy again until they're dead. She is also an exceptional nuke because of her MP, despite being a summer servant, is actually upgraded. It also does 200% extra damage against Saber class enemies. So on top of being a wonderful foreigner counter, because she does counter class as well as most of the foreigners are threat to humanity, she also is a super good anti-saber nuke if you do have a lot of investment put into her, allowing her to outdamage a lot of other single target archers even. So despite of how one-dimensional her game plan is, I think she is a really powerful character to have, especially at MP2 or even MP3. Overall, I think this banner's main problem is that the power level between the two 4 stars are kind of big and they are on split rate up, so you can't get absolutely screwed. However, However, if you are going after Summer BB, I think it's actually quite a good banner. You know, she's not a necessary meta farmer, but she can work in very weird compositions, and if you do like to crit with Van Gogh foreigner teams, hey, she's a wonderful DPS that doesn't need you to have her at high MP levels at all. So certainly a interesting banner to go for as well. The next banner we're going to talk about is the one with Maid Alter, Archer Helena, and Summer Raiko. Now, Maid Alter is a very straightforward character. She has a lot of damage, but not much else. She still has one of the highest single target rider damages in the entire game. However, her skills are nothing too extraordinary. Her first skill is just a pretty generic damage boost. Her second skill is notorious for having one of the worst buffs in the game that people like to make fun of, because it basically just healed back the minuscule HP demerit it gives. However, it does have a cooldown reduction effect, so it is kind of okay, even though I don't think her skills are particularly amazing to reduce cooldown on. Maybe she should throw it on Scotty instead. And then her third skill is also kind of awkward. It's a one attack quick up at 30% only, but also only at a 3-turn cooldown. So you do want to pair that with her MP in my opinion for most cases, but in general it's also not a super powerful effect. Her MP is also just a lot of damage. It doesn't do a lot more than that. It gives her 10% MP recharge, which is kind of okay, but doesn't really help in the grand scheme of things. And it does have a stackable critical chance down effect, which is pretty decent. However, when you're using Maid Alter, you just want to finish off the enemy as fast as possible, so having this effect on such a non-stally unit, in my opinion, is a lot less valuable. There are obviously welfare options, especially one that's coming very soon for boss killing, aka Rider Liz, who is not going to be doing nearly as much damage as Maid Alter. However, her entire skill set just provides her with a lot more survivability and utility in general when you're facing against bosses, so she might outperform Maid Alter. So certainly a character that is okay to pull for if you already like her and you want to upgrade her MP from level 1 to 2 especially. However, in general, I would not recommend pulling for her just for gameplay. Archer Helena, the butt of the joke of the community and will probably continue to be in the foreseeable future. She isn't nearly as bad as she used to be. Her upgraded MP does help her in the damage department. However, the other effects are kind of whatever. The MP does come with a 10 MP charge for the entire team whenever she MPs, so it helps her own looping, as well as, you know, give her some potential in multi-core teams, especially considering her skill 1 is also an AoE 20 MP charge. However, she doesn't really buff the team's damage at all, so she isn't going to be a wonderful option either. Her second skill is the meme one where she gets 2000 true damage, and people keep bringing up the Hermit Crab quest that nobody cares about, where it has continued to be the only time where that skill is relevant. And her skill 3, you know, one-time debuff immunity and 40% arts up helps her damage once again, but doesn't really help her looping situation, especially considering Zenobia would be coming soon and being added to the perma pool, making her a lot more accessible than Archer Helena, and also a lot better, like a lot better at arts looping than Archer Helena. Yeah, this isn't really a character that is worth your time in my personal opinion. Lancer Raiko, considered by many to be one of the grand prizes of this banner instead of the actual SSR, still fares really well today in JP in my opinion. As a main damage dealer, I think she is no longer anything extraordinary, but she still functions well. Her skill 1 is only a one-time crit up. That is the biggest gripe most people do have with her. However, her MP still ignores defense as well as generate 20 stars whenever you use it, so it is still serviceable. It is unupgraded though, so it's not going to do amazing damage. However, I think her true value lies in her ability to not just buff your team with a lot of big buffs, which is 3 turns of 40% buster up, which is very huge. It's almost a 3-turn mana burst that's targetable, and also a 30% star gen up as well as a 20% attack up charisma. But also while doing this, she is able to remove a character's debuffs in its entirety. Even the powerhouse like Nightingale, who has a mix of defensive and offensive abilities, she's only able to cleanse 1 debuff off of your team, when Lancer Raiko is able to cleanse all of it. So many people do keep her at level 60, so she dies off after she has served her purpose, but against certain bosses she will be pretty indispensable because she can both provide such a good damage boost as well as remove all of the debuffs on a target, specifically on bosses that have very devastating debuffs maybe on break or even round start. So overall, I think she is a very powerful character to go for. Once again, the issue of this banner is that there's a split 4-star rate up, and she is rated up with one of the worst summer 4-stars ever in this game, in my opinion, which is Archer Helena. So really unfortunate. Summer Tamamo has actually aged really well in today's JP meta because of her massive skill 3 buff. The skill 3 used to have a massive demerit of stunning her on the following turn. However, the buff not just removed that demerit, but it also extended the duration of her 50% crit up, which is kind of huge, and it also extended the duration of her star generation up to 3 turns as well. The skill still comes with all of the good things that it used to come with, such as the invul, the MP generation up, the debuff resistance, and the heal up, but they also added a 30 MP battery to this, allowing her to even buster loop in very weird situations, or in general to use her MP a lot easier. And all of this retained its 6-turn cooldown, which is relatively short, making her a super good boss killing unit as well. And Summer Tamamo, of course, still comes with all the good things that she used to have, which is her really solid quick and arts cards for MP generations as well as star generation. Especially with her skill 3 now buffed, the star generation kind of goes crazy with her quick cards. Her second skill is a nice 3-turn defense down for damage boosting, as well as a charm that basically the demerit doesn't exist anymore if you do use it when the enemy already has full gauge, and it's a good control tool in general, as well as a good damage boost tool. And finally, her MP still has the anti-mail niche that is very wide, very easily hit. Despite it not being upgraded, it allows her to outdamage her other peers in certain situations. Many people would argue that what is the point of this character when there is a free MP5 option in Summer Yume Ren, who's also a Lancer that counters mails? Well, I kind of disagree with that sentiment because they're different card types, and because of her super solid skill 3 buff, sometimes you don't even have to run her against males. It's just a nice bonus. She also is extremely good in multi-core farming because she pairs super well with Koyanskaya of Dark. She's Buster, she is Animal Trade, who's able to be buffed by Koyanskaya of Dark's second skill as well, and also the Overcharge can massively increase her damage against an end boss who is male. So overall, I'm not going to call her broken after the buff, but I certainly think she feels a lot more modern and up-to-date after that buff, and can stand her ground against some of the modern single-target Lancers. So definitely very impressive character. On the flip side, here is a character that does not age very well in today's JP meta, despite getting a buff just this anniversary. Summer Kiyohime. All of her skills feel more like a 3-star than a 4-star, and they don't do much, and the stalking skill still has the massive demerit of increasing an enemy's attack by 20% that can easily get her killed on accident. Her skill 1 buff does give it a 20 MP battery, so it's a little bit more usable, but the burn amplification on attack effect, I do admit I did overhype it a little bit when I first saw the buff. In general, it's just not worth it. It does less amplification compared to someone like Tomoe or even Berserker Kiyohime, who's able to pop these effects even more easily instead of having to stack it up by attacking with her own face cards. And her MP also doesn't have any anti-trade, it's unupgraded. The only notable thing I would say on it is the skill seal. The 5-turn burn also is just nothing amazing at all. Overall, I think this character is very lackluster and unfortunately left in the dust, and the most recent buff did not save her at all. So overall, this banner is pretty okay for Summer Tamamo specifically, and Lancer Kiyohime is just very unfortunate. I would not want to get her at all in terms of gameplay. So the final banner we'll talk about is Archuria, Caster, Marie, and Ruler Martha. Archuria, even to this day, is still one of the staple single-target boss killers because of how easily she is able to refund her MP. With double Castoria, she can refund her MP to 100% no problem without the help of any face cards. This allows her to fit in certain multi-core farming teams despite her low damage because sometimes you simply need that much refund. With the most recent 30 MP battery buff on her skill 1, it makes her fit into these kinds of teams even easier if you have her at a higher MP level. Archuria Archer is also still one of the safest single target boss killers in this game because she is able to constantly use her MP back to back, and her MP does have a gauge drain effect even though it is only at 70% chance. Because of how easily she is able to use her MP practically every single turn, this is going to heavily delay the enemy's MP turn still. She also has a massive 5000 HP heal only on a 4-turn cooldown. Now the demerit of the 10 MP gauge drain used to be a huge problem on MP1 Archer Artorias because you can't go over 100 on your MP gauge to still be able to MP after using the skill. However, because of her recent skill 1 buff, this effect is kind of mitigated, not completely, but you know, it's a bit mitigated because you can simply drain your own MP to heal and then use her skill 1 to charge your MP back to 100 and still be able to use her MP on the same turn when you healed. She also got a 3-turn sure hit from that buff, which gives her just another tool to deal with specific challenge quest gimmicks, and she also has an AoE defense up. So overall, once again, you know, her biggest problem is her damage, and she will have some competition coming up in Summer 6 with the 4-star Archer Anastasia, but you know, with the disappearance of rotating banners, you know, having to get a 4-star split rate up servant to high MP is not necessarily easier to get a 5-star single rate up character to high MP. So I still think this is a banner worth going for, especially if you already have her and you want to, you know, upgrade her MP level to 2. Caster Marie is in a very unfortunate state where she tries to be a critical support while not actually doing enough damage on her own. And in today's day and age, the little bit of star generation as well as critical damage up that she can provide is not nearly good enough in a critical setup, especially considering her crit buff is tied to her MP and the numbers aren't even that amazing. Overall, what you're gonna feel when you try to use Summer Marie in your team is just this character survives very well and she's just there, that does nothing at all. She does no damage, she does minimal amount of support, and overall she just lives and takes up space. So I don't really recommend pulling for her, unfortunately. Summer Martha is very straightforward and one-dimensional, perhaps the most one-dimensional character of today's entire video. She fights against divine enemies and she kills them very efficiently. She's amongst one of the rare cases where as a summer servant she still got an upgraded MP, and the upgraded MP has a really powerful base effect of 20% defense down that happens before the MP actually deals damage, increasing the base damage of her already pretty decent MP. She also has a 100% anti-divine, demon, and undead power mod for a single turn. Now demon and undead are basically non-existent on most servants, however divine is a very common trait amongst servants and bosses, so you can simply use her as a boss killer or even 90++ farmer if you have to deal with a mid boss that has a lot of HP that falls in one of these categories. She also has a 30 MP battery that further assists in that. So she's overall going to be just a single turn nuke. You can use her as a boss killer because she is a ruler, so she can tank a lot of hits just by her class alone, and she does have triple buster, so you probably can't just use her first skill against the boss and then you try to live for another 5 turns and then use her third skill again, and by that time the boss is probably dead. So she does serve, you know, pretty simple purposes, but she is definitely not a shabby servant to have. However, I'm not sure if this is the best opportunity to try to get her MP copies, as she shares a rate up with Marie Caster, who is just nothing too amazing at all. I would only recommend pulling on this banner if you're going for Archuria. Anyways, that is the end of the video, and this is the first time ever that I do something like this because I usually do a lot more casual talk just in my own Discord server, and since today I have to go through 16 different units, I thought I'd go a little bit more casual on each of them so I don't really waste too much time on a single video. This does still take quite a bit because I tried to re-record a lot of different sections and I probably still missed out on a lot of the stuff, so I hope you guys enjoyed. And personally, I don't think any of these characters are like super urgent. You won't feel that bad if you miss out on all of them, and most of them do get reruns, assuming NA still follows JP's schedule on all of the pre-existing banners, so it's not like they are going to be gone forever after you skip on this particular banner. There are some notable 4-stars. I would say Lancer Melt is probably the strongest one out of all of them, but she does also get a single rate up next year with Trunk Sisters during Sea Monster Crisis, so it really much depends on which SSR you prefer or whether you are patient enough to wait another year. And characters such as MHXX and Lancer Raiko I do think are powerful, but I don't recommend pulling on because they're not going to have any rotation on these 4-star split banners, and that's kind of horrible. And also considering both of them do get banners in the future, I believe Lancer Raiko gets a banner when the Imaginary Scramble main interlude drops on an A, and MHXX actually has a lot more future banners in general, so you don't really have to worry about either. So yeah, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, if you want to save for Summer 6, especially for Summer Kama, for a higher MP level role, I do recommend just skipping on all of them, but you know, if you want to make up for some MP copies on certain characters you already invested in, this is a pretty good opportunity.